Hey everyone, so it's late 2025 and in a world of phones that are, basically small tablets, there's still this, the iPhone 13 mini 4 years after it came out, and you might be really surprised by what this little thing can, and let's be honest, can't do today. So in this video, we're going to re-reviewing this iPhone, but with the latest software. We'll talk about the design, how it performs on the brand new iOS 26, what the camera is like in 2025, and of course, the big one, the battery. By the end, you'll know if this is a smart buy or if it's maybe time to finally move on. Quick disclosure, this is my product, red model, and while I'm focusing on the mini, pretty much everything I say except for, the obvious size and battery differences applies to the regular iPhone 13 too. This also isn't my daily driver anymore, it's my backup, my go-to pocket device for testing things like new iOS betas and for when my main phone is charging. It's got 92% battery health, so we're working with a pretty healthy unit here. To really get this phone, you have to go back to 2021. The big deal with the 13 mini was that it wasn't a light or budget version of the main iPhone. It was the full iPhone 13, just shrunk. It had the same powerhouse A15 Bionic chip, which was class leading at the time. It had the same brighter Super Retina XDR display, and it had a seriously upgraded camera system. The main camera got a much bigger sensor that let in 47% more light, and it got sensor shift stabilization, which was a pro-level feature from the year before. This meant better low-light photos and super stable video. It was a true flagship experience you could comfortably use with one hand. But there was always a catch, and it's the same catch today. The two things that were a compromise then are even more obvious now. First, the screen was locked at 60 Hz, while even cheap Android phones were moving to 120 Hz. And second, the one that everyone talks about, the battery. It was better than the 12 minis for sure, but it was still, a mini battery. In a way, this phone was the ultimate test of what people valued more, a compact form factor or all-day battery life. And since Apple stopped making the mini line right after this, I think we know how the mass market answered that question. That's what makes this phone so unique, a kind of cult classic 4 years on. And honestly, this design just holds up. The flat aluminum edges, the ceramic shield front, it still feels incredibly premium. This product red is vibrant and the compact size is just a joy. You forget what it's like to have a phone that disappears in your pocket and is effortless to use with one thumb. I will say it's very slippery without a case, and the button placement with the power button directly opposite the volume up means I still take accidental screenshots all the time. It's just a classic iPhone quirk at this point, but those are minor gripes for a form factor this good. The 5.4-inch Super Retina XDR display is also still fantastic. It's an OLED, so you get those deep, true blacks, and it's incredibly sharp, technically the highest pixel density of any iPhone because of the small size. Apple said it was 28% brighter outdoors than the 12 mini, and yeah, it gets plenty bright. But yeah, that 60 Hz refresh rate, in 2025, this is probably its most dated feature. iOS is super smooth, so it's not a terrible experience by any means, but if you're coming from a 120 Hz ProMotion display, you will notice the difference in scrolling. For me, since this is a backup phone, it's not a deal breaker, but it's something you have to be aware of. Okay. Performance. This is where things get interesting. The A15 chip in here is, frankly, still a beast for everyday stuff. I ran Geekbench 6 and it scored 2,329 on single core and 5,652 on multi-core. For context, that's still very, very respectable. In day-to-day use, apps open quickly, not as instantly as a new iPhone of course, but there's no frustrating lag. Swiping between apps, scrolling through feeds, it's all smooth. The A15 has aged incredibly well, but, and this is a big but, the performance story isn't just the chip, it's the RAM. This phone has 4 GB of RAM, and in 2025 you feel it. Here's a perfect example from my own use. I'll be reading an article in Safari with music playing, then I'll jump over to Instagram, scroll a bit, reply to a message in X, check my photos, and when I go back to Safari, the page has to reload. It reloads fast, thanks to that A15 chip, but it's a constant reminder of the RAM limitation. Modern apps and newer versions of iOS are just so much more demanding, and newer iPhones have moved on to 8 GB, and even the newest 17 Pro models have 12 GB of RAM. For casual use, it's totally fine, but if you're a heavy multitasker, this will probably be your biggest frustration. I also did some gaming, playing Call of Duty Mobile, and You know what? It's still very playable. The A15's 4-core GPU can still handle it, but it does get pretty warm after a while, especially during intense sessions. I will say, having also re-reviewed the 12 mini recently, the 13 mini is a noticeable improvement in performance and especially heat management. It feels like a more mature, refined version of the mini concept. The camera system was a big step up in 2021, and for video it's still fantastic. It shoots in 4K Dolby Vision HDR up to 60 FPS, and that sensor shift stabilization makes footage look incredibly smooth, almost like it was shot on a gimbal. Cinematic mode is here too, which is a fun feature to have for that rack focus effect. For photos in good light, it produces classic iPhone shots. True to life colors, great contrast, and reliable results. The larger sensor and wider aperture really help in dim lighting compared to older iPhones, producing brighter and cleaner images with less noise. But let's be real, camera tech has moved on. Compared to a modern mid-range phone like a Google Pixel 8a or 9a, the 13 mini's photos can look a bit soft on detail. Google's computational photography is just on another level for stills these days. And of course, there's no telephoto lens for optical zoom, just digital zoom. So the verdict on the camera is this. For video, it's still amazing and punches way above its weight. For casual photos for social media, it's more than good enough. But if you're a serious mobile photographer, you'll notice the limitations compared to newer phones. Okay, let's talk about the software. This is running the public stable version of iOS 26, which just came out a few days ago, and I have to say I'm really impressed. Apple has done a huge visual overhaul. It feels so much more fluid. The new animations are beautiful. They have this new liquid glass design language that makes older versions, even something like iOS 18, feel a bit dated. It's a really nice coat of paint that makes this older hardware feel fresh again. Now, when I first updated, I did notice the phone running a bit warmer than usual, but that's pretty normal. The phone is re-indexing all your files and getting settled. After a day or two, it went back to normal, which is consistent with what Apple usually says about major updates. One thing you don't get with iOS 26 on this phone is Apple Intelligence. The A15 chip just doesn't support it, and honestly, for me, that's not a deal breaker at all. Right now, Apple Intelligence is still in its early days, kind of like a public beta. For any serious AI tasks, I'm usually turning to more powerful alternatives anyway, like ChatGPT or Gemini, which work perfectly fine on here. And now, the battery. As I said, my battery health is at 92%, and for my use case, a secondary device that's mostly in my pocket or on my desk, it's fine. I don't really notice a huge difference on iOS 26. It's pretty much the same. However, for this to be a valid review, we have to talk about what it's like as a primary phone. I've spent a lot of time on forums like Reddit, and the consensus is clear. If you are a moderate to heavy user, you will not make it through a full day without charging. A MagSafe battery pack is basically a required accessory for anyone who wants to use this as their main device. If you love the idea of this phone but need better battery, the regular iPhone 13 is the way to go. It has a significantly larger battery and will comfortably last a full day for most people. So before the final verdict, let's just quickly recap the things you really need to consider. 1. The battery life is a real compromise for a primary phone. 2. The 4 GB of RAM means heavy multitasking will involve app reloads. 3. The 60Hz screen feels dated. And 4. You won't get new flagship features like Apple Intelligence. On the refurbished market in late 2025, you can find these for around $200 to maybe $300 depending on the condition and storage. For that price, your main alternative is a brand new budget Android phone. That Android phone will probably have a bigger 120Hz screen and a much bigger battery, but it will likely have a weaker processor, a less premium build, and you won't get the iOS experience or Apple's long-term software support. It's a classic trade-off. So who is this phone perfect for in 2025? I think it's 3 kinds of people. First, the small phone evangelist. If you've been mourning the death of one-handed phones, this is your holy grail. Second, the digital minimalist. Someone who wants a powerful tool, not a media consumption device that sucks you in. And third, someone like me who wants the ultimate powerful pocketable secondary phone. Who should skip it? Power users, heavy multitaskers, mobile gamers who play for hours, and anyone who absolutely cannot deal with battery anxiety. If that's you, you're better off with a newer standard iPhone or a Pro model. So is the iPhone 13 mini still worth it in late 2025? My answer is a very confident it depends. It's not the best phone for everyone. In fact, it's not the best phone for most people. But for the right person, it's not just worth it, it's perfect. It's a choice. A choice to prioritize comfort, portability, and one-handed use above all else. It's the last of a dying breed, a truly special device. But that's just my take. I'd love to hear from you. Are you still rocking a 13 mini in 2025? What's your experience been like, especially with the battery? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.